hard life. Don't cry, let it ride. Goodbye, hard life. Don't cry, let it ride.
Welcome back. It's your host, Gabe Morales. We've been covering outlaw motorcycle gangs in the United States. Today, we're going to talk about the Outlaws Motorcycle Club, which was incorporated as the American Outlaws Association, and is considered to be the oldest outlaw biker club in the world, with almost 450 chapters located in over 40 countries, with an estimated membership of over 3,000. Making it the third largest club in the world, behind the Hells Angels and Bandidos. The club is designated as an outlaw motorcycle gang, organized crime syndicate by numerous law enforcement agencies in the United States, including the U.S. Department of Justice, as well as multiple other intelligence agencies in Canada and overseas. In this video, I will only be covering outlaws in the U.S. due to time constraints. Originating as the McCook Outlaws Motorcycle Club, it was founded by Electromotive Company employees at Matilda's Bar, located on the famous Route 66 in the southwestern Chicago suburb of McCook, Illinois, in 1935. An individual named John Davis was reportedly the founder of the club. Although inactive during World War II, the Outlaws reformed soon after and attended the first major post-war motorcycle rally held at Soldier Field in Chicago in May 1946. By 1950, the club had begun recruiting members from around the Chicago area and was renamed the Chicago Outlaws MC after relocating its headquarters to the south side of the city. I've been to the city of Chicago many times, and it is a great place, in spite of its sometimes violent reputation. And every time I visited, I never had any problems downtown. In 1964, the Outlaws merged with the Cult Biker Club from New York, the Gypsy Outlaws of Milwaukee, and the Gypsy Raiders of Louisville, Kentucky. And on January 1st, 1965, these various aligned clubs incorporated as the American Outlaws Association. The Outlaws further expanded into Florida in July 1967 by patching over the Iron Cross Motorcycle Club in West Palm Beach. This move led to a war with the Warlocks MC, who started in 1967 and claimed Florida as their own. During the 1970s, a power struggle for control of the Outlaws developed between the beer drinkers faction and the marijuana smokers faction. Reportedly, John Davis, the founder of the Outlaws, was killed by a pot smoker during a shootout on the north side of Chicago as a result of this feud. By 1976, the outlaw country music movement was in full swing, with artists such as Waylon Jennings and Willie Nelson. An individual named David Allan Cole, however, was still somewhat an outsider in the industry, almost too outlaw even for the Outlaws. And he was a full-patch member of the Outlaws Motorcycle Club. The Outlaws' original insignia consisted of a head-on view of a motorcycle in a winged circle. By 1950, the club's logo was changed, and a small skull replaced the winged motorcycle, and Old English-style letters were adopted. In 1954, the design was changed again, and in 1959, a skull and cross pistons logo, known as Charlie, was incorporated, which is the registered trademark that the Outlaws use today. In 1963, the Outlaws began wearing the Diamond 1%er patch, and after they incorporated as the American Outlaws Association in 1965, the club added an additional AOA patch to its colors, with the middle finger expressing the 1%. This emblem was said to be adopted as a parody of the American Motorcycle Association logo, who claimed to represent 99% of the law-abiding bikers. The Outlaws said, "We're the other 1%. In 1969, the club adopted the motto, "God forgives, outlaws don't," and the saying, "Snitches are a dying breed," as well as "Outlaws forever, forever outlaws." A patch listing the members' rank within the organization is also worn by club officers. You may also see an SS patch of 2 lightning bolts, which is said to be awarded to members who have committed violence. either murder or attempted murder or a bombing on behalf of the club. They also encourage support clubs and even non-members to wear symbols such as a hand clenching a revolver with phrases such as support black and white and support your local outlaws, or its acronym SYLO. To be eligible for Outlaws membership, applicants must be a white male over the age of 21 and be in possession of an American-made motorcycle of at least 750cc. Outlaws in the United States and Canada are usually limited to riding Indian, Victory, or Harley-Davidson motorcycles. Like other OMGs, to be formally inducted to the club, applicants have to be sponsored by a fully patched member. They start off as being an associate or a hang-around, which assists the chapter with local errands. If they do a good enough job, they may be asked to become a prospective member or a prospect. Then are given a probationary patch for a specific time period as named by the chapter president. The final phase, becoming a fully patched member, which is only attained by a unanimous vote from members of the sponsoring chapter. Upon becoming a full-fledged member, the individual will be permitted to wear a vest, also known as their colors, and are allowed to attend weekly meetings known as church. Club rules dictate that Outlaws patches cannot be worn by non-members, not wives or girlfriends. Women who are affiliated with the club are known as old ladies. However, they are allowed to wear vests with patches reading "Property of Outlaws." Outlaws are instructed to guard their colors with their lives. It is considered to be their most prized possession as well as their motorcycle, even before wives or girlfriends. Members are required to pay dues and attend local, regional, and national events as dictated by the chapter, often known as runs. Members are not to discuss club business outside of the club. Discipline within the club in the old days used to be handled by a beatdown, but today they're usually punished by fines. After a year of membership in the clubs, they may be eligible to sport a tattoo of the club's emblem and slogans. After 5 years, they may be allowed to have replicas of their colors tattooed on their backs, also known as a backpack. Members may be designated as retiring in bad standing or in good standing, and when they leave, they are either required to put a retire date if in good standing, or to cover up their Outlaws tattoos if in bad standings, or it may be forcibly removed. Each Outlaw chapter has a clubhouse, which is a building usually secured with concrete walls, bulletproof glass, steel doors, razor wire, guard dogs, and video surveillance, as outlaw clubhouses have been targeted by rivals, as well as outlaws targeting rival clubhouses, as we soon shall see. Outlaws territory in the United States is divided into regions. As stated, the Southside Chicago chapter was designated as the club's mother chapter in 1964. However, during the presidency of Harry Taco Bowman from 1984 to 1999, the headquarters was based in Detroit. Bowman's successor, James Big Frank Wheeler, relocated the club's headquarters to Tampa, Florida during Taco Bowman's federal trial, which we'll discuss in more detail here shortly. The subsequent Outlaws International President, Jack Rosca, was based in Milwaukee. In April 2021, the U.S. government alleged in court papers that the international president of the Outlaws was John Ehrman, general managers of the Pharaoh's Gentlemen's Club, Cheektowaga, New York. Like other major OMGs, the Outlaws recruit from support clubs, and the official and main support club for the Outlaws is the Black Pistons Motorcycle Club, which is active internationally. But there are also other support clubs on a local basis, or regional clubs like the Chosen Few MC, which is actually multiracial and is seen here, and is based in Canada and parts of the U.S. Outlaws also have the Cobras Support Club in Florida. Although the Outlaws are a whites-only club, they also have an official support club called Outcast MC, which is an African-American club. However, they cannot become full-patch Outlaws. It's more like an alliance or an insurance policy for them. The Outlaws have a long-standing rivalry with the Hells Angels, which is traced back to when 3 Hells Angels were executed by outlaw members in Fort Lauderdale, Florida on April 27, 1974, and a 4th HA soon died at the hospital. One of their wives was shot in the hand as she raised it to protect her head in yet another attempted homicide. The quadruple murders were carried out by the order of local Outlaws President Clarence Smitty Smith in retaliation for the earlier beating of an outlaw by the Hells Angels, which took place in New York City on December 31st, 1973. Smith later received the death penalty. At that point, the Hells Angels via Sonny Barger declared war on the Outlaws during a summit held in Cleveland in 1974. This conflict resulted in hundreds of fatalities and injuries on both sides in the following decades. The Outlaws then created a new phrase, adios, which stands for Angels Die in Outlaw States. In spite of this, there were occasional peace talks, as seen here when George Christie, probably the most influential Hells Angel after Sonny Barger, is staying next to International President Taco Bowman. Bowman stated that he twice hosted peace talks with Christie in Florida, first in December 1992 and again in May 1993. According to Christie, he and Bowman were working towards a peace treaty agreement when Taco Bowman suddenly withdrew from negotiations. Christie believes that one of Bowman's lieutenants, Kevin Spike O'Neill, convinced Bowman that a ceasefire would make the Outlaws appear to be weak. Bowman received the nickname Taco because of his very dark complexion and resemblance to a person of Hispanic descent. However, he was not. During Bowman's tenure as president, the club grew enormously. Bowman was affiliated with the Devil's Disciples before joining the Outlaws. He became the president of the Detroit chapter of Outlaws in 1970 and was a protege of the Outlaws' Dayton, Ohio-based national president Harold Stairway Harry Henderson. Under Bowman, the Outlaws cornered the market for amphetamine and ran illegal and semi-illegal businesses, such as topless dancer bars in various cities. They also specialized in prostitution, extortion, gambling, and bombings. In addition to illegal enterprises, Bowman and the Detroit Outlaws also ran a motorcycle repair facility and a t-shirt shop that sold designs such as two pistons pointing at the Detroit Renaissance Center with the caption, "Visit Detroit, Murder City," and shirts like "Snitches are a dying breed," one of the Outlaws' mottos. As stated earlier, Bowman then relocated the international headquarters from Chicago to Detroit under his reign, and he developed a reputation as being a very ruthless but discreet crime boss. Law enforcement described Bowman as the first businessman biker boss, and he forged ties with the Italian Mafia in the United States and Eastern European crime groups as the Outlaws spread to Europe, as well as dealing with individuals in straight society, including politicians, judges, and policemen who he paid off. Conflicts with the HAs continued, and ahead of the Pro Stock motorcycle drag race in Milwaukee in June 1993 that was expected to be attended by Minneapolis HA chapter president Pat Mather, Bowman and a contingent of 25 to 30 armed outlaws confronted the Hells Angels shot caller. Bowman took great offense to the HAs wearing their biker vests in Milwaukee when they rode through, which was considered to be Outlaws territory. In late 1993, Outlaws suspected that the HAs were attempting to gain a presence in another city they ruled over, the city of Chicago, by patching over the local Hells Henchmen, MC. Up until this time, the Hells Henchmen and Outlaws had coexisted with few problems. However, this peace ended after this rumor was put out, which later proved to be true. As stated earlier, Minneapolis President Pat Mather was very influential in the area, and he orchestrated the Hells Angels' expansion into Illinois and Indiana, so Bowman ordered his assassination. The Outlaws were successful in carrying out the hit because they never were able to get a shot off at Mather. However, several months later, on December 15, 1993, Outlaws members attempted a car bomb attack on Mather outside of his custom motorcycle business in Minneapolis. The bomb went off, destroying Mather's truck and injuring the biker who had planted the explosive. On December 31, 1993, Bowman gave a famous speech to hundreds of outlaws at a New Year's Eve party in a Fort Lauderdale hotel suite, announcing that the club will be escalating their hostilities against the HAs and their supporters. And he allegedly placed $100,000 bounties on the heads of Sonny Barger and George Christie. HA support clubs were also open game. As described to me by now retired Chicago PD gang detective Joe Sparks, there was a meeting at Bowman's residence in Detroit in September 1994, and he gave permission for the Chicago Outlaws to bomb the Hell's Henchmen's clubhouse. And in November 1994, a bomb was detonated containing 100 pounds of C4 that was placed in a car just outside the clubhouse. Although no casualties were reported, it blew through a steel door, and multiple windows in the building and parked cars in the area were damaged. This attack was said to be the third largest car bombing in the United States, surpassed only by the 1993 World Trade Center bombing and the Oklahoma City bombing of 1995. In spite of the bombing, the Hell's Henchmen passed over to HA's on December 10, 1994, and 6 days later, on December 16th, their Grand Avenue clubhouse in Chicago went up in flames and was soon condemned and put up for sale. A group of outlaws celebrated the event by visiting the site and giving it the middle finger. The Chicago Hells Angels subsequently located to the city's southern suburbs. In September 1994, Wally Posnack, president of the Outlaws Northeast region, and Mad Mike Quayle, a former Rochester Hells Angels chapter president, were killed during a brawl at the Lancaster National Speedway in New York. It is said that Bowman rode his motorcycle at the front of Posnack's funeral in Buffalo 4 days later. As a result of a tip-off from a corrupt police officer, Bowman became aware that the Gary, Indiana Outlaws chapter sergeant-at-arms, Big Don Fogg, was a police informant. And it was announced at a club meeting in Chicago in late 1994 that Fogg would be killed, and his death would be disguised as an assassination by a rival gang. I believe it was to be blamed on the HAs. On January 28, 1995, Fogg was executed with 3 gunshots to the back of the head, and his body was found in a vacant lot near the Outlaws Clubhouse on the east side of Gary. Nevertheless, Fogg received an Outlaw's funeral with full honors, and it was said to be attended by many club members from around the country, including Bowman and Gary chapter president Randy Yeager. Nonetheless, there were no talks of retaliation, which was a dead giveaway that it was an inside job, due to Bowman's insistence that the Outlaws in Florida rid the state of the Warlocks MC. The Outlaws decided to blow up the Warlocks clubhouse in Orlando on October 18, 1994. In another plot, they planned to firebomb the Warlocks clubhouse in Brevard County, but this was foiled by the FBI in an operation against the Daytona Outlaws. In addition to trying to get rid of the Warlocks, Taco Bowman criticized one of the Outlaws leaders, Mad Mike Markham, for failing to take action against Hells Angels in his territory. At the suggestion of Harold Bullwinkle Brewington, Markham then advised Bowman that they should attack the HAs in their home state of California. On December 31, 1994, Bowman hosted a meeting of national officers in Detroit, and apparently taking the advice of Markham, he declared that the Outlaws would wage war against the Angels out on the West Coast. It was documented that they conducted surveillance on Sonny Barger and George Christie. However, 3 members of an Outlaws hit squad were arrested in Ventura after federal agents intercepted details of the murder plot to take out Christie. And it appears that plans to take out Sonny Barger were also abandoned. The turf war between the Outlaws and Hells Angels, like I said, had killed or injured hundreds on both sides. And so in the spring of 1995, Bowman decided that there was too much heat coming on the club, and the HAs and Outlaws agreed to a peace agreement finally in 1996. According to the accord, the HAs agreed to stay out of the city of Chicago, and in return, the Outlaws allowed the HAs to have a chapter based outside of Chicago in the suburb of Harvey, Illinois. Taco Bowman continued his criminal activities and eventually became posted on the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitives list after he was indicted on federal racketeering and murder charges in August of 1997. After 15 months of being a fugitive, Bowman was apprehended in a Detroit suburb by the FBI in June of 1999. He was indicted on 10 counts under the RICO Act. And at that point, Bowman deputized James Big Frank Wheeler as the Outlaws International President, who was based out of Indianapolis. Evidently, Bowman was released from custody and went on the run, but was pulled over in the spring of 1999 by Nevada State Police. However, he was able to get away by producing false identification. I understand that Bowman's mistress in Detroit became enraged that when he was pulled over in Nevada, he was with another woman, and alerted the FBI that Bowman would be returning to Detroit soon. And on June 7, 1999, he was taken into custody. It reminds me of the saying, never underestimate the wrath of a scorned woman. And on June 7, 1999, Bowman was taken into custody without incident at a home near Detroit. At that time, acting international president James Wheeler was formally made president, and he ended up moving the international headquarters from Detroit to Tampa, where Bowman's trial would be held. Despite the anticipation of Outlaw's presence and heightened security by law enforcement, no club members attended the trial. April of 2001, Bowman was convicted of 8 counts of the RICO Act, including 2 murders. He was sentenced to 2 life terms in prison to run concurrently. He was imprisoned at the Federal Correctional Complex in Coleman, Florida, and appealed his convictions, contending that the government had acted illegally in their prosecution. However, in 2002, the U.S. Court of Appeals upheld Bowman's convictions. He ended up dying from cancer at the Federal Medical Center in Butler, North Carolina, in March 2019, at the age of 69. A large memorial service was held for Taco Bowman at his former Detroit chapter compound, and the funeral the following day drew approximately 5,000 people. On the Outlaws MC website, which is not secure, it features a statement reading, "The government has labeled the Outlaws MC as a criminal organization, yada yada. Outlaws we are, RICO we are not. Nevertheless, many outlaw members have consistently engaged in criminal behaviors, as proven by multiple RICOs and court cases." In February 1991, a Warlocks MC Florida chapter president, Raymond Bear Chaffin, was shot 4 times in the neck and head while working on his Harley in his garage. The murder was later traced back to Taco Bowman and Wayne Hicks, who later ended up turning an informant on Bowman. In March 1995, Hell's Angel member Jack John Forby Castle was shot while sitting in his Lincoln on Chicago's northwest side. Castle had previously been a member of the West Chicago chapter of the Hell's Henchmen until they were passed over by the Angels. In October 2000, Outlaws Southside Chicago chapter president Carl J. Wernicke was convicted of the murder. In November 1999, a 4-year state and federal investigation charged 4 members of the Outlaws under Operation Iron Horse with distributing over 200 pounds of cocaine with a street value of approximately $3 million to members of the Grim Reapers MC around the years of 1998 to 1999. 18 Grim Reapers, including their national president, were also charged. In 2011, Milwaukee Jack Rosca, the National Outlaws president at the time, was sentenced to 20 years in prison for conspiring to engage in racketeering activities and conspiracy to commit violence in aid of racketeering.
Now, the Outlaws Motorcycle Gang busted by the feds.
And their national leader is arrested right here in Milwaukee. Our Kathy Orris joins us live now from the newsroom with more. Kathy?
Marion, Ted, a 50-page indictment was unsealed today, and it paints a violent picture of the motorcycle club known as the Outlaws. Tonight, 27 members are indicted on racketeering charges, including their ringleader, known as Milwaukee Jack. This is what neighbors at 2nd and Maple woke up to. Federal agents raided the Outlaw Motorcycle Club, blowing the door right off its hinges.
I did come to the window. At first I thought it was lightning, and then I looked up the sky, and it's like, well, there's no clouds, so it probably wasn't lightning. Steve
Owen heard the racket around 4 a.m. Another neighbor took these pictures of the raid. ATF agents hauled out boxes of evidence and arrested the ringleader known as Milwaukee Jack. 53-year-old Jack Rosga is one of 27 outlaws facing federal charges. This 50-page indictment accuses the gang of attempted murder, kidnapping, extortion, drug dealing, and more.
I've always said with the Outlaws down the street, it's probably pretty safe because for the most part, they don't want cops near them.
A sign even warns, come back with a warrant. And that's exactly what agents did. Despite the cameras surrounding the building, the outlaws were caught by surprise. This was just part of a national effort, with agents rounding up club leaders from Maine to Montana. Among the allegations, outlaw leaders ordered a hit on a rival gang member from the Hells Angels. The victim survived, and the attackers earned themselves new patches. And in 2008, outlaws in Virginia allegedly assaulted a black man simply because of his race. All startling news to neighbors who never had a problem with the outlaws.
No, I mean, other than the occasional rally that'll, keep you up till 12 in the morning because of all the motorcycle noise. But other than that, yeah, they're not too bad.
In April 2017, there was a confrontation between members of the Kingsmen MC and Outlaws in Orlando, Florida. Two men believed to be with the Kingsmen and an Outlaws member, Mark Knotts, were shot multiple times each. Outlaws Motorcycle Club members often communicate with their incarcerated brothers in prison and will often have welcome home parties for them upon release. Incarcerated outlaw members are known as lounge lizards, and it is said that the club collects money on their behalf and puts it on their books. An outlaw who served time in prison is entitled to receive an LL, or lounge lizard tattoo. Law enforcement has targeted the outlaws for prosecution for many decades now. The outlaws have their own lawyers fighting their cases and filing lawsuits against law enforcement. In 2018, the court sided with Florida deputies on the use of outlaw members' photos used during anti-crime lobbying efforts. Fighting a bill that would have allowed Floridans to openly carry guns, two Orange County Sheriff's deputies in 2011 moved forward with a plan to give lawmakers a glimpse of some of the people who might be able to pack heat out in public. The deputies put together booking or driver's license photos of 1% members, including outlaws. In the brief filed in 2017 on behalf of three bikers, including Leslie Hillbilly Boss, who was National Outlaws president for a short time period, and a former Hammerskins member, Tracy Osteen and Dole Napier, said that the way their photos were used was illegal. In the end, lawmakers did not approve the open carry law. Some good books on the outlaws are The Outlaws Motorcycle Club, which was the focus of a 1967 photojournalist named Danny Lyon. Another book is The Last Chicago Boss, My Life with the Chicago Outlaws Motorcycle Club by Peter Big Pete James, who was a former member of the Outlaws. Another book is Biking in Brotherhood, My Journey, which was written by David Charles Spurgeon, who spent 11 years riding with Outlaws and shares his experiences with the club. And also Vagos, Mongols, and Outlaws, My Infiltration of America's Deadliest Biker Gangs by Charles Falco and Carrie Dorbin. Before I end, I want to again thank all those who schooled me on OMGs and assisted me in making sure that info in this series was fairly accurate. I especially like to thank John Scarudo for his assistance on this episode, who has appeared on this channel previously. So, I know that was a lot of information and I skipped over a lot, but I hope you learned something new. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button and share this channel with others if you think they might be interested. For now, this is Gabe Morales signing off for Gangsters, Cops, and Politicians.